beggars can't be choosers. I want the team to win, so I can't sit here and pick who carries us to the win. And I'm just gonna have to accept it and live with it that Julius Randle, this is pretty much Julius Randle's team at this point. You can't say otherwise. There's no argument to be made right now to say this is RJ Barrett's team and this is not Julius Randle's team. The way he's performed in the last 2 games, alongside with his little buddy Alfred Payton, you got to say this is Julius Randle's team. Hey, what's going on? Quis here from Sports Vibes TV. And in this video, I just want to talk about the Knicks and the Cavs game from last night. The Knicks ended up winning 95-86, and it was a game that was a lot closer than it really had to be. Julius Randle went out there and he did his thing. I think he had, 28 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. The only real bad spot or the negative to kind of nitpick would be his turnovers. I think he had like 8 or 9 turnovers. But other than that, he had a pretty good game. I think he even shot like 100% from 3, like 4 for 4, something that you're not really used to seeing from Julius Randle. So if he's going to actually be a legitimate point forward that has the ability to stretch out the defense and hit that outside 3-point shot, then I think the Knicks are going to be a lot more competitive or a lot more dangerous than I had thought initially. I was expecting to see Julius Randle do his little dribble, spin into the double and then turn the ball over. Where there were some instances of turnovers in this game, but none as egregious as we've seen typically from Julius Randle. RJ Barrett, he was okay. He wasn't as efficient as I would have liked. He ended, I think, with 12 points. He has a decent start to the season so far. I wish I would have seen a little bit more from him. I would have preferred if I would have seen this level of production from RJ as opposed to Julius Randle. But, Julius Randle's on the team, so I'm going to support him. And the way I see it, the better Julius Randle performs, the more likely we are to get a first-round pick next year for him. And that's what we'll be able to use to pair with RJ, to pair with OB, and to pair with IQ. So I'm just happy that the team came out and didn't allow the excuse that they were outmanned to really come in and bring up a stinker. Because if you watch the Knicks, there's been plenty of times where the Knicks have showed up to the court, showed up to the arena, and haven't put on the performance that us Knicks fans would have preferred. And this could have easily been one of those games where the Knicks could have mailed it in. They could have came in and said, hey, we're missing IQ. We're missing Alec Burks, a player that has been, a godsend almost, seeing that we've been having some issues in the backcourt. Burks has been able to take some of that load off of Payton, RJ, and some of the other guards, seeing that IQ being out. So we were missing those 2 players. We were missing Omari Spellman, a player that's seldom used, but, he's still a body, especially when you're dealing with the likes of Andre Drummond and JaMale McGee, 2 big bodies that we could use some additional length against in the paint, even though Omari Spellman's not really a low post defender. But, that's 6 fouls we could have used, and Andre Drummond ain't the greatest free throw shooter. Also, we were missing, if I'm not mistaken, we were also missing Obi. Did I say Obi already? I think I started with Obi. I said IQ, Burks, Spellman, Obi. So if I didn't say Obi, there I got the full 4 players that were out. So to have all these players out, the Knicks easily could have went into the game and said, this is not a game we're supposed to win, especially coming off a high against the Bucks. It's not. As a Knicks fan, I've seen plenty of times where the Knicks go in one day, beat a team they were supposed to lose, and then come back and then lose to a team they were supposed to beat. So to see that narrative kind of change this season, to me, I think is positive as a Knicks fan. We went out there, we played good, we were sound defensively. Like, think about what the Knicks did. The Knicks won by 9 points in a game in which we had 25 turnovers. Like, this should have been another blowout. This should have been a blowout back-to-back. I don't even want to say that because that would have sounded crazy. But this should have been a game where we should have won by another 20 points. Because, 25 turnovers, it was a sloppy game, especially in the first half. We were up. We had gotten a nice lead in the first quarter. And then in the second quarter, it was like, what are you guys doing? Y'all are like getting real sloppy with the basketball. And this allowed the Cavs to kind of stay in the game. But if you look at the actual breakdown in the second half, the team only outscored us by 2 points, I think, between those two quarters. So honestly, this team should have won by a lot more points. And the turnovers is what really caused this game to be a lot closer than it had to be. And also in the fourth quarter, I was getting a little bit nervous. I'm like, do we have a closer on this team? We don't even have anybody that can bring the ball across half court. They would get me so nervous. I'm like, wow, we're up 11. Homie just threw a terrible pass in the backcourt, turned the ball over. I'm like, this is typical Knicks. But, we were able to get it together. And at some point, we realized that slow down, calm down, dribble the ball out, and we ended up winning. But toward the end of that game, I was nervous. I'm like, yo, what are these guys out here doing? They don't know how to inbound the ball. They don't know how to play against a full court press. I mean, I know they don't play full court press too often in the NBA, but come on. You got to drill some of that in practice, trying to get a little bit better than that. Elfrid Payton, he didn't have as good a game as he did against the Bucks. 2 for 4. He's working on his 3-point shot, though. I think, what was he, 4 for 4? Yes, against the Bucks, and then 2 for 4 in this game. Can't really be mad at him. He filled out the stat sheet as well. 14 points in total, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. So he's playing well too. So honestly, I know I've sat here and had problems with both Randle and Payton as players on my team, but I'm not ever going to sit here and hope they play bad, because it's not beneficial to the Knicks. It's more beneficial for me and my team if they play good, and then we can trade them at the trade deadline for somebody else to try and contend. And if they continue to perform at this rate, that's something that's more and more likely to have. Imagine we can get a first-round pick for Julius Randle next year. That would be 3 first-round picks in 2021 in a draft that most are touting as a deep draft. That, to me, would be perfect. So I'm going to continue to root for Julius Randle to continue to play well. That way we can ship him out of town and get some draft picks. Same thing with Elfrid Payton, because honestly, I like the way that they're playing, but I still don't think they gel with the core, if you kind of get what I'm saying. Like when Obi comes back, yeah, we don't necessarily want to thrust Obi in the starting spot, but at some point, Obi's going to have to start. We invested a high first-round draft pick in Obi. He's going to have to start eventually, and it's not going to happen with Julius Randle on the roster. Also, Elfrid Payton, I don't think is going to be the starting point guard for the Knicks for the foreseeable future, outside or past this year. So at some point, we're going to have to thrust IQ into the starting lineup just to see what we have. We have to find out what we have before we hit into next offseason. It seems like all my teams have young players, and we never know what we have. Daniel Jones, we got him at quarterback, don't know what we have. Same thing with, we kind of know what RJ has. I think RJ could be a solid, closer once he's able to get his jump shot a little bit more effective. But outside of RJ, we really don't know what we have in Robinson, Obi, Quickly, Nitty, and DSJ. DSJ was another player that didn't play. Look, I forgot to mention him. That's how far he's fallen from grace. He wasn't even in the game as well. So, just to go down the roster and talk about some of the other players that were playing, Kevin Knox, he had a decent game. I think he was 2 for 3 from 3. I want to see a little bit more from Knox, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like Knox has a lot of potential. It's just things haven't clicked yet. And, you thought with the introduction of the coach and what we've been doing, you see a little bit better production from him. I don't want to sit here and say he's been bad. I just was expecting a little bit more. The way he was talking in his interviews, how he was working with Obi, working with some of the other players in the off season. I would have liked to see a little bit more. He only had 6 points, 1 rebound, no assists. He did have the best plus minus on the team, though. So the Knicks, outscored the Cavs by far the most with Kevin Knox. I think his plus minus was plus 14, and the next closest was, I think, plus 11. So it was a good showing from the Knicks. As a Knicks fan, I'm not going to sit here and act like I wasn't happy about it. It was great. I would just prefer if we're being led to these wins by someone other than Randle or Elfrid Payton, like we have been in the last 2 games. So, beggars can't be choosers. I want the team to win, so I can't sit here and pick who carries us to the win. And I'm just gonna have to accept it and live with it that Julius Randle, this is pretty much Julius Randle's team at this point. You can't say otherwise. There's no argument to be made right now to say this is RJ Barrett's team and this is not Julius Randle's team. The way he's performed in the last 2 games, alongside with his little buddy Alfred Payton, you got to say this is Julius Randle's team. And that's why I kind of wanted Julius Randle to be moved on from, because time and time again, I keep saying Julius Randle is talented. He's just not the player for this team. So once again, he's showing that he's talented and he's kind of taking over the team. And we're just going to have to go as far as Julius Randle takes us. I mean, I'm not happy about it, but if we're going to continue to win games like this, like we did against the Bucks and games like we did against the Cavs, then I'm going to just have to live with it. Because right now, this is a lot better than what we've seen the last 2 or 3 years. And as a Knicks fan, as somebody that comes on here and talks about the Knicks, this is a lot better than coming on here and saying we just got punched by 20. I'll take this any day of the week. Give me Julius Randle, take it, scoring 30, and I'll come on here every day after the game and be like, yo, Julius Randle has to be traded, but we won, and we're going to live with it, and we're going to celebrate. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Once again, I'm Quis, host of Sports Vibes TV, and I'm out.